3-year-old Kei'Mani Latigue was discovered in a rundown house in East Toledo. The circumstances of the death and the new details that surface daily continue to shock thousands. Let me know if you'd like it to sound more formal, more emotional, or tailored to a specific type of audience.
Weird thing about it is because before they even showed up, he asked me to turn my cameras off. I have cameras in my house, and he asked me to turn them off. And I was like, why would you want me to turn the cameras off? He said, because I didn't come home till 5 o'clock that morning. And he didn't want them to suspect anything because he didn't show up till 5. And I'm like, well, thinking in my head, I'm like, well, if you don't have anything to hide, then why should I turn the cameras off? And I didn't, but he thought I did.
Darnell Jones, Kei'Mani's father, who was arrested for kidnapping and taking her life, allegedly told his then-girlfriend to turn off the cameras so he could conceal the evidence. But how long had he been mistreating Kei'Mani like this? And did her grandmother, Dorothy Latigue, know what was going on? There are reports suggesting Kei'Mani attended school with visible injuries while under her care.
Kid stuff, she was phenomenal. Like I said, she was like no other kid her age.
What school did Kei'Mani go to?
She went to Spring Elementary.
And we were told that at that time she was doing good in school as well too, correct?
She was. She had brought her grade point average up from a 3.4 to a 3.9. And actually they were going to have an award ceremony for the basketball players today.
Wait, did she just admit that CSB basically gave her a way to continue hurting Kei'Mani without raising suspicion by telling her to strike her on the bottom instead of whatever she had already been doing? As this case continues to unfold, it's becoming painfully clear that this little girl had been suffering long before her tragic death. Many are now saying that more than one person should be held responsible. When I started digging into Darnell Jones's criminal history, I was shocked. I couldn't believe someone with that background was ever allowed near a child. And once you see it, you won't believe it either. The little girl was found in a horrifying state. According to reports, the Lucas County Coroner's Office performed an autopsy and determined the cause of death to be multiple incised wounds of the neck. She was reportedly found nearly decapitated, with her hands severed. Her father, Darnell Jones, who was later revealed not to be her biological father, was the last known person to see Kei'Mani alive before she was reported missing on March 18th. According to police, he was accused of taking Kei'Mani from her home without the consent of her legal guardian. Toledo police said that the dad provided inconsistent statements to police about his activity with his daughter, as well as his whereabouts. And when Columbus police approached him when he fled there, he had an officer with a firearm from inside his sweatshirt. But authorities were able to apprehend him. Interestingly, it was actually Darnell Jones's then-girlfriend who assisted police in uncovering key evidence in Kei'Mani's case. The girlfriend, whose name we are choosing not to disclose, told investigators that Darnell called her on Friday, March 21st and asked her to turn the cameras off at the home, but she became suspicious and left the cameras on. Despite his request, she said she was in the bedroom when a relative saw Darnell move some items out of his SUV and into the house, hiding them under the basement stairs, so she called the detectives, and they came in with a search warrant and grabbed the things. After Darnell realized those items were missing, that was the last time she saw him. As for what he hid under the stairs, the girlfriend said it looked like one of those rubber mats made for the back of an SUV. Not a pickup truck, but the kind you use when you fold the seats down to protect them while hauling things. That's what he rolled up and placed in her basement, along with his work boots, which were covered in mud, even though, according to her, he hadn't worked in a while. She also mentioned that Darnell later called her from Columbus, and she informed the police of his whereabouts. What many people are now asking is how this man was ever allowed near that poor child. Her mother wasn't the one raising her, and she stated that Kei'Mani had been moving between her grandmother's and godmother's homes since she was just 9 months old. Meanwhile, this man, who wasn't even her biological father, was constantly around, according to family members. When I looked into his criminal history, I was stunned. I couldn't understand how someone with that kind of record was permitted to be near a child. And just so you fully grasp it, let me break it down for you, starting with Darnell's first conviction, which dates back to 2011. When the then 19-year-old was cited for disorderly conduct while intoxicated and resisting arrest, he was charged with arson, a fourth-degree felony, for his role in trying to set a building on fire, And according to court records, he used a handheld lighter to ignite flammable liquid that had been poured on the door of a business in the 1400 block of Jackson Street, and he and another man were seen fleeing the scene. At the time, he was sentenced to 4 years of community control with a raft of conditions, including 3 months in the correctional treatment facility and a mental health treatment facility in downtown Toledo. The conviction also meant that he would never be able to ship, use, receive, purchase, own, transport, or otherwise possess a firearm or ammunition. But 4 years later, Darnell, at that point 23, would be a suspect in a crime that would earn him his first charge of felon in possession of a firearm. A third-degree felony. Reportedly, he was in an argument with someone when he pulled out his and went right for the man's foot, and then fled the scene for this. He was sentenced to 2 years of community control and was ordered to spend 6 months in the correctional treatment facility, given 3 months of work release, placed on electronic monitoring, and directed to get a job. In another instance, in 2017, a man told police he had confronted Darnell a few blocks away at 18th and Monroe Streets, accusing Darnell Jones of having robbed his nephew. The two men started to argue, and Darnell, who was working on his car, hit the man in the face with the vehicle's alternator. In one instance, Darnell was involved in a violent altercation that left his nose and upper lip split down the middle. He pleaded guilty and, in January 2018, was sentenced to 180 days in the Correction Center of Northwest Ohio. However, his jail time was later suspended, and he was placed on 2 years of probation. Just 6 months later, he was arrested again for disorderly conduct while intoxicated. Police found him outside his home on Star Avenue, yelling and cursing at people. While waiting for his hearing, police were called to a home on the 300 block of East Broadway Street, where the homeowner reported someone trying to break into her house by prying open a front window. Guess who they found trying to break in? Darnell Jones. There was also another violent incident in 2020 with a different man that left Darnell in the hospital. Additionally, a former neighbor recalled witnessing Darnell throwing 2 televisions off the balcony of his second-story apartment one evening in July 2019, prompting her to call the police. While officers were en route to the apartment on the 400 block of 4th Street, a second call came in from an anonymous witness. This caller told police they saw a man and woman on the second-floor balcony of the same building. The first caller added, "We all went out on the front porch and watched the whole thing unfold. You could see it from right here. He had her by the throat over the balcony, and he was going to throw her off. She was screaming for her life." The police arrived within minutes of the first 911 call and arrested Darnell. Despite his wife, Antonia Sullivan, declining to press charges, the police had enough evidence and witness statements to move forward with the case. After spending 11 days in jail following his initial arrest, Darnell was not incarcerated further for the domestic violence charge. The judge, however, found him guilty and sentenced him to 180 days in the Correction Center of Northwest Ohio. He was also placed on active probation for a year and ordered to complete treatment with Unison Health. Once he proved he had completed the program, the remaining 69 days of his sentence were suspended. Darnell's last interaction with the police before Kei'Mani's disappearance occurred in August 2022, when he was arrested on third-degree felony charges for being a felon in possession of a firearm, along with misdemeanor charges of discharging a firearm, possession of paraphernalia, and disorderly conduct while intoxicated.